Hello, everyone. My name is Baylan Megino, and welcome to Global Dreammaker Leadership Summit Spring 2022. I am so honored and excited, actually, to have our next guest, Tracie Root. Let me just greet her. Hello, Tracie. How are you today?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Moving forward. This is the right thing, right? Moving
Yes,
forward.
moving forward. Absolutely. Taking action.
There you go. Okay, that's why you're here. So let
Yep.
me let me tell people about you.
Okay.
So, Tracie Root, as the founder of the Gather community, she took her own goal getting advice by shifting in 2022 from holding and hosting in person events in her brick and mortar space to creating a nationwide community of like minded women who are growing and thriving together. Tracie serves women entrepreneurs in her workshops, her coaching programs, and in the Gather community membership and events to gain visibility and confidence so they can be bold in their business. So today, Tracie's going to share with us how to be bold in your business to thrive and prosper in your life. All right, Tracie.
Yes. So excited. No matter what's happening in our lives, what's happening in our world, as soon as we are ready to talk about what we're passionate about, it's pedal to the metal. Let's get going. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, well,
Um,
share with us, how did
yes.
you, yeah, tell us a little bit about your story, about how you got to the work you're doing now.
Absolutely. Well, I've been coaching for about 10 years. Prior to that, I worked in corporate America, like many, many, many people. And I lived here in Silicon Valley. I'm currently in Santa Cruz, California, but at the time I lived in San Jose, the center of kind of the whole high tech industry. I worked in that area in those high tech companies for 17 years and was heavy in customer service and helping people in their work lives to have a great environment so that they could do their job well and the companies can make money and everyone can support their families and grow their careers. I realized about 10 years ago that as I had two small children and my husband had recently passed away from cancer, my first husband, um, that I needed to do something a little bit different if I was going to be able to spend time watching my kids grow and being a part of their growing up, right? Because as someone who was working full time in corporate America, it was a lot of drop them off at daycare, go to work, pick them up, put them to bed, rinse and repeat every day. And it was exhausting and it wasn't very fulfilling. So I found coaching. I found someone who helped me as a health coach, and they helped me learn how to become a coach. Lots of active listening and personal development, I would say, are the two main things that came out of that in those initial years. But I really fell in love with the idea of the the thoughts that you have create your future, and the decisions that you make are yours, and even to not decide is a decision, right? So that everything is a choice. And what do you want to choose for your future? I began working with women on setting goals, really clear, specific, good goals that are going to help them have clarity on where they want to go so that they can build a structure to get them there. This is probably my favorite thing to do with my clients because people don't realize that their goal isn't clear enough to achieve until they're already not achieving it and are frustrated. So that's when, as you said in my intro, that I took my own goal setting and goal getting advice because I decided that I wanted to start doing in-person activities. I wanted to do vision board workshops. These were things like I just wanted to bring people together. I thought this was, in 2018 or so when I was starting to come up with this idea. And I personally really I loved going to networking. I loved being at conferences, and I really wanted to create that experience and that connection capability as often as I could for my clients and for the people in my world. So since I had an interior design and project management background and had a struggle here in town finding places to hold these in-person events, I decided to create a place of my own. That place was called Gather. And we opened in October of 2019. And 5 months later, we all know what happened. So I know. And you know what? And now there's lots of good things about it, but in the moment, there were really good things about it. And one of those things was we had been growing so rapidly because the need was so prevalent to bring people together and to build community, that after being open for 5 months, we were so busy and I hadn't hired any help yet. So truthfully, when we got the notification from the government that it's like, okay, you need to shut down any indoor, meetings or whatever, I said, oh my gosh, thank goodness. I get to breathe for a minute, for a couple of weeks, right? Because that's what we thought it was going to be, and figure out how this could be different. Because I was like just at my wit's end, full up to here. So I was really grateful actually for the opportunity to kind of take a breath and reassess how we were going to move forward. And of course, what happened instead was it wasn't just a couple of weeks. So, I looked at how we were supporting those in-person events. And I realized that if we were all going to be moving to online events, which I was very experienced in doing because that's what I did before the space existed, then I could help people who were less familiar with doing online events have success. And so that's what we did. Instead of someone renting the room and us giving them promotional support and getting eyes on their event announcements and all of those kinds of things, we now do it as a membership. So I have, a handful of people. I don't remember the number off the top of my head what we started with, but these days we've got 20, 30 people who we support in their promotion, giving them visibility. We host summits. We have a membership mastermind. We have networking events. So we do all of these things that will allow our members and their clients and potential clients and the Gather membership or the Gather community as a whole, in the widest sense of the word, to connect and to support each other, to be able to find the thing that's going to help them grow, and to understand that when we connect with other people who are doing great things, then we are all way more likely to be able to do the things that are going to fulfill us as well. And so that's how I kind of went from corporate all the way to creating the Gather community, which, when we were just a room in a small city here in California, the potential was, this big. And now we have nationwide members. We have a nationwide global audience, really, especially if it's more based on time zones than where you live, right? And it's really, what's wonderful about it is that there's that whole limitless feeling of it. We do not have to worry about where someone lives in order to connect with them and to grow that community. And it's much more of a global, since you're global dream makers, right? It's much more of a global perspective, which I think is really valuable and important to everyone, even those of us who, I was born and raised in California. My global perspective grows every day. And this is a big part of it, is being able to see the bigger picture of what's going on in the whole world. So that's how we got to where I am now. And, the idea of being bold really came out of that transition from corporate to coaching. Because when I worked in the corporate environment, I really kind of felt like I needed to fit into an expectation in order to have success. And what I know now, having been 10 years out, is that the way we have, even in an office setting or in a work setting, the best way for us to all have success and fulfillment is to be able to be ourselves and to not feel like we have to conform to someone else's idea of what's appropriate for an office. Now, that doesn't mean that we can just be, loudmouth jerk in the conference room type of person, but it means that we get to take a look at who we are and find our place in the world without having to change who we are in order to be there. Yeah, so that's, that's how I got started. And I'm not sure if you want me to keep going or if you have questions.
No, that's wonderful. That's wonderful because it was just a logical flow. It was a
Mhm.
logical flow and expansion of what you were doing, what you were
Right.
already doing. You were taking what you had in place and then responding to what the world and the market was saying, this is what we need.
Right. Well, and so when the pandemic came, right, the whole idea of moving from an in-person model to an online model, like I said, I'd been doing online events and I'd been using Zoom for years and all of those kinds of things. And it really was like, as a leader and as someone who had clients to support, my thought had to immediately go, okay, what are we going to do now? Because we not only don't know what today holds, but we don't know what the future holds. And what I really realized was that we never do, right? We used to think we knew what the future held, but we really don't. I learned this for sure in supporting my first husband with his illness and going through his treatments and all of that, and ultimately his passing. I have two kids right there now, 13 and almost 16. And if any parent could tell you, you think you know what the future holds, and you don't. We think we make a plan and we don't really know what the future holds. And now that we've all gone through the process of these last couple of years with the pandemic, and even today, it seems like we're in this place, but we really don't know what's going to happen in 4 months from now, 8 months from now, another year from now. And that, I think, is my favorite thing about all of this, is to recognize that it's okay not to know what the future holds, and we get to keep moving forward anyway. And I think that's the big gift for me in this pandemic is, the folks who decide that they're going to wait and see what happens aren't gonna, there's no forward motion, right? If they wait and see when things go back to normal, or there was a lot of that in that first year or so, right? When are things going to be back to normal? Well, of course, nothing in nature really goes backwards. We can't go back to normal. And I don't even like the term new normal, because that's just today. So it's the ultimate exercise in kind of being present, and also having a forward-looking perspective, so that you can imagine still what you want. And even though you don't know what the future holds, you can still go in that direction and learn how to recalibrate and redirect yourself as time goes on, because we aren't going to know what's going to happen. But if we just stay here and wait, nothing's going to happen.
And that's where it becomes really important to know what's important to us individually,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Who are we being present to? Who are we showing up as?
Mhm.
And to, as you say, be bold enough to do that so that your business can thrive. Here at
Right.
Global Dreammakers, we look at your business and your work as your creative expression, right? It's the way that you take whatever inspires you and you bring it, cycle it through into, well, what's it going to look like as my offering to the world?
Yep.
Right? What value
Yeah.
am I going to provide?
Right. And, I think that as you were talking about, it's that creative expression, our business being our creative expression. I think that reiterates the fact that it's all us, right? It's all a blend. I wrote something about this the other day that I was excited to see it reach some people. The idea of work-life balance being not appropriate, because that would mean that our life and our work are separate and equal at all times, or the goal would be to have them equal. And in our lives, that's going to change all the time. What's happening in your life may, in the moment, totally supersede what you're doing in your business or in your work. Or maybe you're in a season where you're really emphasizing what you're doing in your work and and on a mission. And, it all depends on what you're working on. And maybe in that moment, the life part gets a little bit hairy because there's a season of needing to really focus on the work. What I love supporting people with is finding out how to blend the two. And as a parent of teenagers, this is a really big deal for me. And I use that as an example because, we've got 3 weeks left before school gets out. Summer is coming. It's, early May right now. Summer is coming. And when my kids are not in school, my focus on being there for them is very different than when they're in school all day, every day. So our season changes a little bit. At the same time, if I were in the place where I had certain things happening in my business for this summer, then, maybe I would have a different plan with the kids. And in truth, I wouldn't plan that for my business in the summer because of the kids, right? And that changes as their ages change. In a few years, they're going to be off to college. I was thinking about this the other day. In a few years, they'll be off to college or out of the house and whatever that looks like. And in theory, maybe not, I don't know. Don't know what the future holds, but that could really change what I'm doing in my business. So, it really comes down to getting clarity on where you are, what you want, why you want it, and putting together a structured plan to go in that direction from where you are. And that takes time to develop, time to figure out. It often takes an external perspective to ask questions. I mean, this is why I love coaching. I love it when someone asks me, well, why is that important to you? How do you think you're going to be able to accomplish that? And that's one of my favorite questions because often the answer is, I really don't know. And I have, when the answer is, I have no idea, now it's time to start figuring it out. And so it's really important to have support and mentorship in that way. And that's where, why I love coaching women to be bold, because what does bold even mean? And it means something different for everyone. I was posting this morning, what does it mean? Does it mean coming on video and wearing red lipstick and being outspoken? Or does it mean, kind of quiet support of, an organization that means something to you? Or does it mean, I don't know, donating time? Being bold means something different to every person. And what I want to do is find the people who know what they want or are ready to figure that out so that I can help guide them in that direction.
Well, we have to work together because that's what we do with the Dream Maker Matrix.
Right. Well, that's why we connected so easily, I think. And that's why I'm here, because I was like, I need to be with Baylan because the mission is perfection.
We're like yin and yang. There you go.
Yes, right.
Yes, absolutely. Well, okay. So you've talked about bold. You've talked about business. We've been figuring out, well, how do you thrive? You have to set your goals. So I'm going to step back. I love everything that you're saying. Absolutely love it. And I'm hoping it's opening people's minds a bit to expand beyond those expectations of what is successful in this particular container of a business, of a situation, of a partnership, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to step back and listen to you tell us how to be bold so that we can thrive and prosper in life. Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, happy to. And the thing is that, like I said, business and life, they're really all blended. I know that your audience, there's an entrepreneurial tendency, but we're also all people. So, when I'm talking about being bold and coming, like I said, from the Silicon Valley corporate America world, what I love to do, because I'm a fan of clarity and structure, I took BOLD and I made it into an acronym, because that's how I keep on track and remember what I'm talking about when I'm helping people. So when we're talking about being bold in your business or being bold in your life, really, it's all the same. So you can apply these to personal goals, you can apply this to professional goals, whatever serves you in the moment. But we're going to start with the letter B, and B stands for build your vision. So I mentioned earlier how much of a fan I am of setting really clear goals and a structure to get them. And that's what B is all about, because you can't start thriving in your life if you don't know where you're headed, right? If you don't have a plan of where you want to go, and you don't have a goal, and you don't have a vision of your future, then that's what we call kind of being stuck, right? And no one wants to feel stuck, yet at the same time, they don't realize that the way out of that is to have a vision and a plan. So building your vision means getting really clear on what that goal is. When I'm teaching goal setting, I use the SMART goal format. I've tweaked it a little bit with some special alternate words, for SMART, but, specific, measurable, time related, all of those things are all really important, because it gives you that framework to make sure that it's clear. If you skip the time piece, or you skip the measurable piece, if you skip any of those letters, then how are you actually going to know if you're making progress and if you're actually getting to where you want to go in the time frame that you want to get there? So being really clear using that goal format is really important. Taking a look then related to that about where you actually are today is the second piece. It's like a GPS on our phone, right? We can put in the address of where we're going to go. But if we don't have our location on, the phone is like, well, I don't know how to tell you to get there because I don't know where you are, right? So we have to know where we are in relation to that goal. And then we have to make a plan to get there, right? Just like that map is going to tell you to turn right, turn left, make a U-turn if you missed it, right? All of those things, recalibrate if there's traffic that's going to make the experience different than what you desire, right? Same thing goes with going after that goal. You got to know where you want to go, like the exact address, specific. You have to know where you're starting and know the turns that you want to take on the way and what kind of experience you want that to be. The last piece of building that vision is make sure that you have either one-on-one accountability or community support, people in your life that are going to help you stay on track, not like make you, but be there for you when you need support. And that's actually where we head over into letter O, which stands for own your choices. And what does that mean? That means that as I said earlier, everything we do is a choice. And that also means that we can choose to get support instead of doing things ourselves, especially if we don't know how. Maybe we find that expert who can help us do the thing we want to get done without us personally having to do it. Now in business, we do this a lot, or we in theory do this a lot. Hopefully we do this a lot because we know we're not the expert at all of the areas in business, marketing, sales, accounting, whatever, all of the different categories of a company. A CEO, the owner of the company, is not going to be the expert in all of those areas. So what do? We get support. We find someone who's great at the marketing stuff. We find an accountant. We find a coach. We find people who will help us navigate the areas that we're not experienced in, we're not good at, or are not the things that will uniquely allow us to move forward either in business or personally growing. So making sure that we know what's for us and also knowing where we can ask for help. And then the last part of that, of course, is accepting the help, which is a big, right? Which is a big part of that. Many of us high achieving entrepreneurs have a hard time asking for help. And even when we ask for it, we know that they're doing it wrong and we want to just do it ourselves. Like, I think that that's a really common thing. So asking for help and allowing them to help you. It's a gift, actually, that we're giving them the gift to help us. We're then receiving that gift. It's very reciprocal. I actually think that that's kind of how the world is going to change, in recognizing that all of these relationships have to be reciprocal. The top-down model, now my brain goes to politics in the world, right? The top-down model is not fulfilling for anyone other than the people on the top. And I don't even know, is it even fulfilling for them? Or are they just doing what they have been taught? You know, I mean, there's so many questions related to that. But when we can ask for help and receive that help and then thank them, like, all of that reciprocity is really the thing that makes the world kind of a connected weave of humans. And I think that's how the world changes. So I could keep going on about that. O is actually my favorite letter in this whole thing, because it's so important to own your choices, know what you're going to do, know what you're going to ask for help with, and receive that help. It's super generous on both sides. So that's O. So build your vision and then own your choices. L stands for leverage your learning. So we all love to learn. We love to go to workshops. Many of us entrepreneurs are going to be lifelong learners. We want to listen to podcasts and read books and go to conferences and take classes, get certifications. People will also say that there's no learning like the school of hard knocks, right? So what does that mean? That means that when we are in action, we might make mistakes, and that's when we learn, right? So leverage your learning means that while we're in action, whatever we do, we're learning from. Did it go great? Great. I'm going to learn to do that repetitively. Did it not go the way I thought it was going to turn out? I'm going to learn from that too and say, that didn't go how I expected. Maybe I should try something different next time. Or maybe I just need some consistency because I believe it's the right thing, and try it 5 more times and see if it still is not turning out, or if I just needed to fine tune it or hone it, or just repeat until, satisfaction guaranteed. So leveraging that learning, being okay with making mistakes, and knowing that starting is what matters, because as soon as you start, you can learn as you go. And at the same time, we know that the beginning is just the beginning. So, often we're afraid to start until we feel ready. But ready doesn't really exist, because there's always something more you can prepare to be more ready, right? I think of people who are, planning a presentation, like in a corporate office, right? You have a PowerPoint that you have to make to present to, your managers or whatever. How do you ever know that you're ready to do that, right? You create the slides, it has the data that you want. Is this the best way? How can you possibly know until you actually do the presentation? You can't, which means that you can't know that you're ready. So why wait until you are? You have to just start and act, right? Action is big. So you have to be okay with not being ready. Be okay with not being perfect, because there is no perfect, before you start. That imperfectness is what makes you relatable. It makes you a human, right? And it's humans connecting to humans that make this communication effective. It's not person watching perfection. It's not interesting, and it's not engaging, right? Have we all been to like the workshops where it's a pre-recorded and there's a PowerPoint and the person's this big in the corner and the PowerPoint's this big, and like they say they're reading the chat, but it looks like, but you're not really sure if that's actually true. right? Like, oh, so-and-so mentioned this, so-and-so mentioned that. Was this all like pre-recorded too? Like, you don't know without that interaction, which is why I'm glad we're here together. You know, without that interaction, you don't know if that's really kind of happening. It might be that they were trying to make it, you know, nice and perfect. And I find that really unrelatable. So anyway, we learned from those things that didn't go as expected is the last part of leveraging your learning. And then the last thing for letter D, of course, is to develop yourself for success. So success for all of us is whatever we define it as, right? It could be financial, it could be, you know, building your business to whatever, it could be family, it could, you know, there's so many areas for goal setting and success in your goal setting. But what it comes down to is if you work on your attitude, your mindset, in order to understand what success looks like for you as you go pursue it, if you develop your ability to take advice and get feedback and make changes, right? And knowing again that the beginning is only the beginning. It's important because we have to start, but it's not the end. It's just the start. So go ahead and start and have the path and the start and the next step and the next step be a part of your development as you're getting there closer to that goal, because those actions, that bold action with confidence, is what will get you toward the goal. Without it, we're not going to get any closer. So we have to take that action. And in order to do that, we have to develop that confidence and the ability to take those steps and be okay with making mistakes, and to be okay with learning from them, and to be okay to ask for help, and to be okay with knowing that that picture that you're going after might be a little bit of a reach from now. But if you're taking the steps to get there, you will get there. So you have to start. So that's where, you know, I take that BOLD framework. So build your vision, own your choices, leverage your learning, and develop yourself for success. If you take all four of those pieces and see where you are and where you're trying to go, those four things will keep you going on that track. And then don't forget to ask for help. And always come back to that, because we can decide that we're going to be bold, and then something goes not the way we think, and we shrink a little bit. And then we're going to be bold again, and then we shrink a little bit, right? So having that community and the accountability and people around you reminding you that what you have within you is exactly what you need for that success. As long as you can remember that, you can have success. If you can't remember it, which is when we're alone, we forget things, right? We need those reminders. And that's why connecting with people and being in community is so important. And that's why I created the Gather community, because now I personally have a crowd of women around me helping me know that what I'm doing is getting us all closer to success. And they have me, and I have them, and they have each other. And that having that group of people is keeping us all remembering that if we are bold in our choices and in our actions, then we will have the success that we're looking for. So that's what it means to be bold in my world. Is there one of those four that sounds most interesting to you, Baylan?
Oh, well, I'm right up there with you with the vision, creating the vision,
Mm-hmm.
and, connecting with our spiritual support team, as well
Yeah.
as the people around us, but connecting with our spiritual support team when we ask, right? You're right. You
Right.
have to ask, and then you have to be open to all the possibilities that might come as an answer,
Yes.
you know?
And then you get to choose. You get to own
Yes.
those choices, right? And that's the whole free will thing, right? You ask, whether you ask a person or ask spirit or ask the universe or ask your dog, what should I do? Where am I going? How do I want to do this? And when you receive answers, right? It's the old story of, oh, I need to be rescued. God, please rescue me. And they send the helicopter and they send the SWAT team and no, I'm waiting. Be open, like you said, to whatever answers come your way. And then you get to choose which direction you're going to go in and which answers and which support you're going to engage with, for sure.
And just to really open up to all possibilities. It's just such a wonderful way to manifest your life in the world,
Mm-hmm.
because what I like to say is that our human minds can only imagine that which we've been exposed to, but there's so much more.
Yep.
There's so much more that's out there that is possible, and there's so many more people who are out there ready and willing to assist in whatever way we can't
Yep.
even imagine. We can't
Right.
even imagine. So, go
And
through
isn't
those
it?
doors that open, answer those calls, follow up with that person who expressed interest, because those are all steps to your answer.
Right. It's interesting too. You said, that we can't even imagine what's possible. Like that's so immense. Even if we take it down to what we can imagine is possible, we shrink away from that, right? Because we don't know what to do or how or who, or, because we don't make a plan, because you don't define what that is. When you can define it, we can't define something we have no idea. So yes, we can look for inspiration, from infinite sources. But when we do define what we want, we have to define it with clarity so that we can go in that direction. And once we achieve that, then the next level starts to become visible. And that's how we expand that vision of what is possible that we haven't experienced, is by getting to one level and then the next level and the next level. And then ultimately, I guess after that is enlightenment, right?
Well, clarity is so incredibly important, so
Mhm.
important, and so important. It's
And it's really
like
bold to be
it's like
clear.
it's like being on the East Coast and getting to the airport and saying, "All right, I want a flight to the West Coast." Well, okay,
Right.
where on the West Coast do you want to go? Well, how about California? Let me go to California. Well,
Pick a
where
good
in
place.
California do you want to go? Um, well, I think I need to be in Silicon Valley. Let me go over to Silicon Valley.
Right.
Well, which one? There are two, at least two, if not three or four airports you can go into
Right.
that are in the Silicon Valley area. And so really, you have to really hone in
Yep.
so that your flight can get you where you need to go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That GPS analogy, airport analogy, it's all kind of the same thing. It's a really good example because everyone understands that.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're talking about, okay, well, what do you want to, what do you want to, like, so in business, right? I want to increase my sales or I want to increase my income. So what? Like, what's the number? And people are really afraid to say the number, right? And I teach sales too. So, if you're looking at sales, you have to look at the specifics. You have to be able to measure the dollars in your bank account. And if you're afraid to say those numbers out loud, then you're not going to be able to get this goal that you're not really stating, right? That you're just kind of imagining in this kind of this blurry, sparkly future that isn't defined well enough to actually accomplish or achieve. So
And how would you,
clarity is king.
yeah, I mean, how would you even know that you've gotten there?
Well, you can't because there's no there, because
Yeah.
it's just this blurry, sparkly future. And that would be the never reaching horizon, right? That it's forward, it's forward, it's forward. I remember this actually really clearly. This was 6 years ago. And I was talking with a friend of mine, great guy, super awesome business guy. And he's like, well, what do you want? And I was like, I don't know. I just want more. Right. And it's because I was ambitious, but I just wanted more. And I didn't have a definition of what that was at all. And he's like, well, that's great. What does that mean? And I said, I have no idea. And it was kind of it's a great kind of harken back to that story for me, because I know now that that's why nothing was happening, right? I was just kind of going in circles or forward and backwards rolling, because I didn't have clarity on not only what I wanted, but how I was going to get there and who was going to help me and what I was going to have to learn to become that person who could achieve the goal that I was afraid to state. So that was a big learning, and it's a really good example of more is not a goal, and you're not going to accomplish success without stating what your goal actually is. And that's just the end result. If you don't state your goal, you're never going to get it, because you don't know what it is.
Right, that's the entire thing of B.O.L.D, right?
Right.
What's your goal? It's your vision.
You got to say it out loud, because if you can't say it out loud to yourself, how is yourself going to know what to do?
Well, it is a start. It is a start. Put it out into the world. This is what I want.
Yeah.
So that it
And
can
just,
start your
it doesn't have to, you don't have to publish it in the newspaper, as if there's newspapers really anymore, right? You don't have to put it on your Facebook status. Just know it for yourself. Write it in your journal. But have clarity on exactly what it is. Use that SMART framework. Use the need to create the goal and where you are in the path to get there. And that's, those three pieces. Without those three pieces, you're not going to move from where you are to where you want to go.
So what do you see are especially now, because everything is pivoting, everything is changing, how we do business,
Constantly.
how we work. And so what do you see are some of the main pitfalls or the main, what do you call it? Barriers for people moving forward?
Well, so not having a clear goal is number one, right? Not having super clarity on even where they're trying to go. I think that the time spent in fine-tuning that and putting it down on paper is undervalued, right? We are out there in action. We're doing our social media and we're writing our emails and we're talking to people and we're having our events, but without sitting down and determining, that you're doing this summit, I have my own summits, right? Without determining what's the goal of the summit? We're trying to reach this audience, this many people. What do we want to share with them? What's the goal? What's the mission? What's the theme, even, for an easier, maybe more relatable word, right? What's the theme? What is the vibe we want to share? What do we want to share? What's the point? If we don't have that, then we're just kind of wandering around. I just had a vision when my kids were younger. We had a Wii game unit, and there was, you know what I'm talking about? It's a Nintendo, game console thing. My kids were kids, right? So, and there's this thing where while you're trying to decide what game you're going to play, it's all these little figures, they're called Mii's, little figures of people kind of wandering around in this vast floor of nothing. And they're just wandering, kind of looking around, no direction, no plan, just milling about. And I just had a thought that without knowing where you're going, you're just kind of wandering around in that kind of grid of nothing, no space, not a real place, just in nothing, waiting, not knowing where you're going. So without knowing where you are and where you want to go and having a plan to get there, that's a huge barrier. I think the other barriers have to do with comparison and judgment. People thinking that other people are better than them, that other people have it all figured out, and why don't I? And I clearly am not as good as them, so I should just not do it, right? So a lot of personal diminishing in the face of social media and things like that. And it can be overcome, but it also has to be practiced, right? The idea of not succumbing to feeling like, the grass is greener and they have it all figured out and I, haven't figured it out yet. And therefore I'm not going to succeed because I don't know anything, right? We go down that rabbit hole of negativity unless we're intentionally staying out of it. So it's really important to, again, kind of develop your mindset, develop your belief in yourself, developing your belief in what you're doing, in the value of what you're sharing, right? And that is something that takes practice and often takes support and mentorship. It's something that we all struggle with. Even the most successful, I don't know. I guess I'd have to talk to Tony Robbins to find out if he struggles with that. But I'm sure that he'd tell you he did, even if he doesn't now, right? The master guy. And everyone does. Mel Robbins, one of my absolute favorites. She's, I think, the queen of authentically sharing when she's struggling and how she comes out of it. That's like all her stuff is about that. And that's how we all are, right? When we're struggling, we just need to figure out how to get out of it. And having that consistent support and mentorship and personal and professional development, I think, is the key to that. That's why I love doing the Gather community and creating this to grow, because the personal and professional development opportunities that our members bring to our membership at large is like, it's all the kinds of things that I would want in order to help develop myself so that I can have a fulfilling life and business. And I hope that we bring that to our clients as well. So, yeah.
That's the incredible part about having the Gather community, that it does provide that level of support, and it's more than just it's a real deep level of support.
Yeah. And it can be, it's personal, there's wellness, there's business, there's, confidence, there's technical, support in like technically how to do things, but also there's like, what is your heart telling you, right? We've got people for that whole spectrum in our community, teaching classes, speaking on subjects. And I definitely am in the boat of like, I've created what I needed for myself, right? As many of us do, right? When you need something, you go out and make that thing. And that's, I think what the Gather community is for me. And I'm thrilled to be able to share it with everyone else too.
So where can people find out more about getting into Gather and, awesome?
Yeah. Well, so a few different places, right? I've got my main website, tracieroot.com, where you can find links to all of the things, including the Gather community page, which is another website as well. That's the gather.community. We also have a Facebook group that that's probably our main like online space where we hang out, where we really promote the things that are going on and get to know each other on that level. We also show up over on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And of course, we have events coming up on a regular basis. So engaging on our website, thegather.community, you'll find a calendar of events of everything that's coming up, either sponsored by or hosted by our members or hosted by us as a company that involves our members presenting their goodness and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, really anywhere you can think of connecting. I've got 2 websites and all the social medias, so you'll find me easily.
Awesome. This has been such a rich experience to hear your sharing and to see how you've brought everything full circle. Everything is full circle, and now it can deepen and create more nourishment for people.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you the final question.
Mm-hmm.
If you could speak to all the leaders in the world and you knew that they would listen to you and you knew that they would take it to heart and maybe even act on it, what would you tell them?
I think that I would remind them, because they already know, that the connection to each other is what makes the world go round, for lack of a better term, right? If I'm talking to all of the leaders in the world, many of us are like, I'm a leader, I'm leading, I'm doing this thing. But you know what? Don't forget that really Leadership has to do with being an example. And if we want the people in our world that we are leading to connect to each other, then we also have to do the same. So connecting to those who can support you, in addition to who you can support, I think is probably the big, and it goes back to owning your choices, that reciprocal nature, right? As a leader, we're like, I'm going to connect to this person. But what if we allow them to come into our world? I think that is what we as leaders need to remember, is that that connection has to be two-way, and it has to be like this, right? It can't be top to bottom, and it can't be one person telling the other what to do or instruction, right? It has to be collaborative. We have to have it be a community. Yeah, for sure. That's it.
Thank you so much, Tracie. Wise words. Wise words. The future will be in good hands if all of us took that to heart and actually worked from that perspective.
Yeah, I think so.
I think more of us will now that they're listening. Okay.
Hopefully.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, hopefully, I think if we do listen, it's that listening to other, right? Recognizing that we don't have all the answers, that other people know more than us, and that together we can both grow by being connected, right? It's not a holding each other down, it's lifting each other up in order to expand all of our perspectives, in order to have everyone in the world be more visible to each other, so that we can all understand each other, so that we can all just get along. When I started health coaching 10 years ago, I didn't know I wanted to change the world, but that's definitely where we've ended.
I think we'll end with that.
All right, let's go change the world.
We're all going to change the world. We'll show
Let's go.
build in our business and change the world. There you go.
Yes. Sounds great.
Thank you so much for joining us, Tracie. And if people need to get in touch with you, they should go to tracieroot.com, and also to follow you at thegather.community.
Yep.
And all of your social media, Facebook, Instagram, and everything else.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us, and thank you everyone for listening to this very powerful talk about how to be bold in your business so you can thrive and your business can thrive, and therefore your people can thrive.
Yep.
So that's your community.
And the world can thrive.
And the world can thrive. There you go. It's the ripple effect.
That's right. That's right.
All right, everyone.
Right.
Thank you for joining us. Be well. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Baylan.